Good evening, everybody. I'd just like to call to order the meeting. This is the public hearing. I got the wrong agenda. Notice of public hearing for Monday, November 25th, 2019 at 6 p.m. I'd like to call to order this public hearing. Number two, this public hearing is convened pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representations to Council respecting matters containing to the following proposed bylaw. Colwood Land Use Bylaw number 151, 1989, Amendment number 169, 3510 Wishart Road, Bylaw number 1788, 2019. All persons present who believe their interest is affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given an opportunity to be heard on the matters contained in the proposed bylaw or to present their written submissions before tonight's hearing is adjourned. Those who wish to speak concerning the proposed bylaw should proceed to the microphone and begin by clearly stating their name, their address, and views concerning the proposed bylaw. There will be a time limit of 5 minutes for an individual's first presentation and a 3-minute time limit for any following. The function of council is to listen to the views of the public and not to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw. Members of the council may wish to ask questions for clarifications at this hearing. All written submissions, together with the presentations made at this hearing, will be given full consideration and will be retained by staff for review by the council. No further submissions or presentations will be received by the council in relation to the proposed bylaw after the conclusion of this hearing. 3, introduction and background of the bylaw. I will look to staff.
Your Worship, this is a public hearing regarding rezoning of the subject property at 3510 Wishart from Rural 1, A1 zoning to Comprehensive Development CD26 zone to enable a 12-lot subdivision. Notices were placed in the Gulfstream Gazette on both November 13th and November 20th, advertising the public hearing tonight. In addition, approximately 100 notices were sent out to adjacent neighbors. To date, we have had 4 submissions. 3 of the submissions expressed concerns regarding the proposed development, and 1 of the submissions did not have any objections. In addition, staff have provided council with copies of the tree management plan and the traffic impact study for information. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I looking to Brent regarding written submissions? Is there, how would we normally proceed with written submissions? Brent looked at me shockingly.
So staff's intent is that I believe the copies of the submissions are included in council's package, and what we have done is simply summarized the general intent of those submissions for council's information and for the public's information.
Thank you. Then I will move on to public input. We will now seek public input. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against the proposed bylaw? Please come to the mic. Please state your name, your address. If you don't wish to say it because we are being recorded, you can just give it to our recording secretary offline.
My name is John Olson. I'm 31486 Royal Bay Drive, the Westridge townhomes. And I live across from where the proposed development would be. And I just want to make a very brief comment. I already did a written submission. And so these are just by way of an addendum. First of all, I appreciate the response from staff. It was helpful and prompt, so that's very positive. My concern is about the character of Colwood itself, and especially this bit of it. I'm a bit worried that hillside development may engulf the city. Well, it already has to some degree, but and there was a problem following on from that, but maybe now's the time not to repeat that. So just a couple of specifics here, without going into a whole lot of detail on that. That's the concern. I note that engineers want to put a sidewalk on the other side, and that's going to take out some trees, I think, and that is a very nice bit of the road. Actually, that road is quite a nice part of Colwood, and I'm just wondering whether it's worth sacrificing the trees to add a sidewalk and a bike lane there. But engineers probably rule the day, but as you may know, but I wanted to say that, what's the trade-off there? That's one thing. And tree retention is a thing that bylaws want to deal with, and, there are quite a few trees being taken down that are supposedly bylaw protected. Okay, so the next thing is the exits onto Wishart, I think, are a bit of a problem and probably should be minimized. I was nearly T-boned at the new exit over there coming up, and somebody came whizzing out of there and nearly whacked me. And the sight lines on Wishart are not great. I'm not sure what the engineering says about that, but it's a bit curvy, and if the entrances onto Wishart can be minimized, that would be good. That road is a racetrack in rush hour. I live near it. I hear it, and some dudes go down there like you wouldn't believe, and that should be taken into account. I'm not sure that was considered by the report that was done on that, but people coming out of exits there, run the risk in the dark in rush hour of getting whacked. And it's been a racetrack for a long time. People are frustrated, obviously. So maybe that could be fed into the assessment of the road. So to conclude, I hope the plan will respect the amenity of this part of Colwood. It's a very nice bit of town. And perhaps the developer should be asked, along with the city, to scale the plan to minimize loss of trees and quality of streetscape. Quality of streetscape is, it's already been roughed up, but I think it would be a shame to see it all go. And maximize corridor safety. Colwood has a very nice treed and hilly aspect, and people appreciate it. And if you read the Colwood Facebook page, you see quite often comments about that quality, but also concerns about the loss. There is some issue in town, not just for me, but for anybody who lives in Colwood. We Colwoodians should care. And I think we should do what we can to protect this city's quality, which I think is significant, So that's it. Thank you. Thank you for your attention, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for your input. That's it. Unless you had written notes that you wanted to provide to our minute taker.
You have my written submission.
Okay, great. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Rob Boyle, 544 and 540 Winthrop. I had a written submission that's attached to this. I don't see anywhere in this bylaw where any of those concerns were brought up or addressed, and I still go back onto the side yard setback of the proposed lot 12, which is adjacent to my property. According to this, it's still at a very minimum. Given the number of lots in this stretch there and the frontage required, that could be maximized, and I don't see that reflected in this bylaw proposal. I'm just wondering how council was planning to do that. Pretty much about it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Boyle.
Hi, Desiree Vaughn, 546 Delora Drive. I guess I'm not on Winthrop or directly close to this property, but Delora is close, and I've seen what's happened with what happened on the gardens area and how they clear cut the entire property. didn't save any trees whatsoever and crammed houses in on tiny terraced lots. 12 homes in this size of a property is still a dense area for what should be, to me, a quiet road on the way to an elementary school. So I think that the density and the loss of trees to people who live in Colwood, who drive that road, I think it's very discouraging. And I don't think that, you know, people aren't always out here saying, you know, what they like and what they don't like, because it doesn't seem to matter what you say. But I think that this kind of development has got to slow or reduce. And I mean, I feel bad for these setbacks when I look at how many properties got crammed into that area and the loss of what was there. It's horrible. And to see it continue down towards Latoria, it's just, I can't imagine how bad this is going to look. And if you try to get 12 lots onto steep slopes, you know you're going to have blasting. You know you're going to have retaining walls. You know you're going to lose the integrity of the natural hill. And even, you know, we have an official community plan, and Colwood is constantly telling you, and the residents of Colwood are constantly telling you that they don't like this. And I don't know why it keeps being approved. Why are you coming and doing it over and over again? I feel like it's so frustrating. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? For a second time, is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening?
You're the applicants. Would you like us to speak at this point?
You feel free if you want to.
Yes, we do have a short presentation.
We'll try to race through in under 5 minutes. So, Your Worship, members of council, staff, and community members, first of all, thank you to the community members who took the time to come out and voice their concerns. We totally understand them, and we are, believe it or not, really on the same page that we want to do a nice job for this property, not clear-cut, blast, and terrace it like certain other projects in the neighborhood have done. We want to make a really good development which retains most of the trees, most of the rock outcrops. Yes, it's a steepish site, not as steep as Wishart Gardens, but it's a steepish site, and it's going to take a little bit of work, but we're really making an effort to follow Colwood's OCP and site adaptive planning. So maybe I'll just, I should have introduced myself. Al Hurley, 646 Langford Street in Burnaby, in Victoria.
Al grew up in Burnaby, so he's forgetting.
Yeah, forgetting where I live.
My name is Laura Tate, and I'm the co-owner and co-applicant. I actually grew up in Colwood, and I can remember jogging through some of the beautiful treed areas when I was in high school, and sometimes regretting it. But as Al has said, we really do strongly believe in keeping as much of the natural features as possible. We base that partly on our professional experience, but also because in July we did have an open house on our site. And we didn't have a lot of people come out, but those who did come out all said, you know, the trees are important to us, and we actually heard that. So we have actually considered 3 different themes of information that our revised site plan has responded to. Let's talk about these first. This is an overview of our site, and we're happy to answer any questions about any of our slides. This revised site plan, we did want to just respond to a concern that was raised by Mr. Boyle. He has mentioned that he feels the setbacks between our site and his property are still not enough, and I just wanted to make a clarification. We did expand the setback to 3 meters between our property, and it's a little hard to see. I'll maybe skip through. So you can see it in a little bit more detail. So it's the same distance as the same width as the proposed habitat corridor. It is not in the bylaw because we understand that this is going to be secured through covenant, but there will be a guarantee that they will be 3 meters and not 1.5 meters. We have also, in terms of trying to prevent and minimize blasting, we've come up with a grading plan, and I'll just skim through this, but we're happy to answer any questions. So these are examples of how the homes will be built within the rock as opposed to blasting and having a completely flat site. So the setback is increased to 3 meters. And this is an example of how we would envision the building to be built so that, again, there's a minimizing of blasting, because we certainly are sympathetic to Mr. Boyle's point. We also, again, where possible, we're trying to secure privacy through a difference in natural grade, and there is a difference in height between the Boyle property and Lot 12 of ours. This is also a diagram showing all of the areas on our site that will be preserved through covenant, meaning nothing can be built there, and that the vegetation will either be retained or improved. We also did, I think I'll skim through this, we hired a snake expert who came and did an additional assessment on our property. We also have an environmental consultant who's here and can answer questions. And he actually felt that there was no snake habitat right now, but that he'd love to see us add to the habitat that would benefit snakes and reptiles and amphibians. And so we are certainly happy to do that. The blue area is the area of our site that he walked. The orange area is where originally there had been some suspicion that snakes existed. In terms of blasting, we have, again, several examples of how you can build with nature, and this is our intention. This is an example of a property in Delora that we think has done a nice job of building with natural grade. This is a place in Broadmead. Here's an example. I know Wishart Road is a great concern to the residents here because this is what they see, and I really respect that. So what we've done with our landscape architect is come up with a few ideas for how, again, we can try to build with the rocks, so that rather than blasting out rock, this is an example from Whistler where somebody has built with the rock and even a garage, and you can see on the site plan that there's also plans to retain some trees in the side, and we will of course replant trees. This is another example of how that same lot might be built. We are, where we can, preserving trees. Where we cannot, we will be replanting. And we also had some things to say about traffic, and I'll turn that back over to Alan.
I'll skip through this quickly, but this is the sort of layout of the site and how it will be accessed. 9 lots via the extension of Delora out to Winthrop, and 3 lots onto Wishart. On Wishart, we agree that minimizing accesses and minimizing tree disturbance is a good thing. So we've consolidated the 3 lots into 2 accesses, and we're working with staff to design the sidewalk to maximize tree retention there. So we looked at the impact of the extra lots on traffic, and they found that it was really very minimal. The worst traffic movement was making the left turn off of Winthrop onto Wishart during the peak hour, where, according to the model, the current average delay in the peak hour is 11 seconds. After hour development, it goes up to 11.1 seconds. And in 2040, it goes up to 15.3 seconds. It's more driven by traffic on Wishart than on Winthrop.
So just to conclude, we want this to be a win for Colwood, for the community, and of course for the project. And we'd like to thank you for taking the time to hear us, and we're happy to answer any questions.
then it's not normally for public hearing. Okay. Councillor Dick?
Thank you. Just for the proponents, I heard you say that your plan was to retain most of the trees. When I read your arborist report, it identified 161 trees that are being removed without considering what else might have to be removed as a result of servicing for the sites. And I think there's something like 300 trees identified on the site. So that means that right off the bat, we're talking about less than half being retained, but you think that's most?
Yes, correct. I didn't check the math before I said that. Perhaps I should have said around half. We're going to be retaining the most that is feasible, and the number that was included in the traffic or the tree management plan did include trees that would need to be removed for servicing reasons.
And I would just add, there were some, what was really interesting to us in going through this process of the tree survey, we had both our landscape architect and the tree experts talking to each other the whole time. And so there were some areas where we actually wanted to preserve trees, and the tree experts, the arborists basically said, you know, that tree's dying now. In several cases, we are responding not just to the needs of the development, but to what's actually happening with the trees. And this is why staff had asked us to do the report now, as opposed to down the road when we were doing a development permit, because we wanted to be honest with you and honest with the community about what is happening to that vegetation on the site.
So, and you mentioned that you'll be doing replanting. So can you give us an idea how many trees you'll be planting and how they'll be looked after in the future?
We have not gotten to those discussions in detail about the replanting plan. That's something certainly that we will be having further discussions with staff about as we go forward. We do have a number of different mechanisms associated with our proposal, not just the zoning, but also some covenants and a subdivision process. So there are many stages we still have an opportunity to provide those guarantees.
Thank you.
Anyone else from council? Seeing none, I have a motion from Councillor Logan to adjourn. I need a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Jensen. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Council, I would like to go back in camera before 7 p.m., so please don't go anywhere. And I'm going to ask the public to leave.